They wiped her out like she never existed, scrubbed her from every database, deleted her from every record, and buried her name under layers of classified red tape until even whispers of her were gone. Madison Lane, once the military's most deadly precision sniper, had been reduced to a ghost, forgotten, disavowed, erased from the official narrative. That is, until the day she stepped onto America's most elite shooting range without fanfare, without tech, without anything but an old beat-up rifle and a fire that never died. The kind that waits patiently. The kind that burns low until it's ready to scorch the world. They laughed at her, called her outdated, mocked her like she was some washed-up relic from a war nobody wanted to remember. But the second she pulled that trigger and the range went silent. That silence, that was louder than any explosion. Because right then, they realized something that chilled them to the bone. They hadn't humiliated her. They had reawakened her. And what followed wasn't a comeback, it was a reckoning. Madison didn't just outshoot billion-dollar systems or humiliate men with shiny metals and soft hands. She exposed something deeper, something so corrupt and far-reaching. It had been rotting under the surface for years, a network of betrayal, lies, and violence stretching all the way to the highest levels of government. They had tried to bury her. But Madison Lane? She doesn't stay buried. She rises. And when she does, people fall. The sky over Arlington that night was black and still. The kind of stillness that makes you nervous if you're paying attention. No wind. No city buzz. Just the rustle of dry leaves along the ridge where Madison lay motionless, her eye locked on a target 2 miles out. In the scope of her old Winchester, the Maddox estate, yeah, Garrett Maddox. That Garrett glowed like some smug beacon of untouchability. She'd been watching it for weeks, mapping out every corner of that compound. She knew how long it took each guard to circle the grounds, when each motion sensor cycled off, when each damn light flickered. Maddox had built himself a fortress of arrogance, but she was here to remind him was never untouchable. He just hadn't been touched yet. She adjusted for elevation. Wind was dead. Breathing slowed. One shot. Not for damage. This one was about memory. 15 years ago, that man erased her entire Team Black Echo. Erased her. Or so he thought. But when she locked in on that hidden infrared camera tucked away in his fancy garden, she knew he'd get the message. This wasn't about the camera. It was about getting in his head. Making him remember. "Let's see if you remember who I am," she whispered. The rifle cracked sharp, clean. The camera burst in a quiet pop of sparks and glass. 2 minutes later, alarms exploded across the Maddox estate. Inside, his head of security scrambled. Maddox leaned in toward the screen just in time to see static roll across it. "South Garden. Camera 27. 2 clicks out," the guard said, voice shaking. Maddox didn't blink. Find them. Find out how they got this close. Lock down the estate. He already knew who it was. He'd seen that shot before. And there was only one person who ever pulled it off. The one who was supposed to be dead. But Madison? She was already long gone. She slid down the ridge, packed her gear like it was second nature, and disappeared into the trees. Her old pickup was waiting near a rusted-out barn, hidden under a sheet of tin, headlights off. She drove without hesitation through backroads she'd memorized years ago. She had waited long enough for this. Garrett Maddox had built his legacy on silence, covering up what really happened in the Congo, wiping out the only team that could testify, and making sure Madison Lane never had a voice again. But his one mistake? He let her walk back into his world without finishing the job. 2 weeks earlier, Madison had walked through the glass doors of Precision Elite like a shadow in a room full of polished egos. She was there for her niece, Harper, who had begged her to come. Harper wanted to do a story, something about gun culture, and how places like this didn't exactly open their doors to people who didn't fit the mold. Madison said yes, figuring she could stay in the background, invisible. She was wrong. Maddox had spotted her that day, not just the old woman with the worn leather rifle case, but the way she moved. Like someone who scanned for exits before stepping into a room. Like a soldier walking through a kill zone. He knew. And just like the predator he was, he baited his trap out in the open. The crowd laughed. The cameras rolled. They handed her a faulty rifle, one designed to humiliate her in front of thousands watching online. And she let it happen. She let Maddox believe he'd won. But while they laughed, she studied him. The way he stood. The way his security moved. The holes in his armor. He forgot what it felt like to be hunted. She didn't. That night, she returned home to Harper waiting at the kitchen table, eyes wide with questions. "You fired, didn't you?" Harper asked, already knowing the answer. Madison didn't explain, just poured herself a glass of water, hands steady as stone. "You made your move," Harper said. "What now?" Madison stared out the window. She didn't need to answer. "Not yet. Now we go back to where it all started," she finally said. Precision Elite had felt like a luxury showroom the first time. All glass and steel and rich smells of leather and gun oil. But on that second visit, Madison wasn't there to blend in. She was there to finish what Maddox started. As she and Harper walked through the lobby again, Maddox played his part, grinning for the cameras, pretending not to recognize her. "And you brought someone with you?" he asked. "This is my aunt. She's an enthusiast," Harper replied. Maddox chuckled, loud enough for the nearby crowd. "An enthusiast, huh? Well, you're in for a treat." He led them to the range, where he'd set up a demonstration. But this time, Madison saw it coming. The rigged rifle, the bait, the laughter. When the shots missed, they laughed harder. But she didn't flinch. She didn't give them the show they wanted. She simply handed the rifle back and thanked them politely. Quiet. Dangerous. Later, Harper paced the lobby, furious. "He set you up? Why didn't you call him out?" "Because this isn't over," Madison replied. And it wasn't. Back at home, Harper started digging. But no matter where she looked, Madison Lane didn't exist. Not really. Her records were too Cleano combat history. No citations, just logistics and supply. A 20-year service record that said nothing. Until Harper stumbled across an old forum post. Black Echo Myth or Buried Truth. 2 posts. One asking if it existed. The other replying, "Doesn't exist. Forget you heard it." She couldn't forget. She pulled the thread harder. Madison finally came clean, told Harper the truth. Black Echo wasn't just a name. It was a shadow unit. Off the books. No medals. No graves. Just ghosts used until they were inconvenient, then erased. They operated in places no one talked about. Missions no one would ever admit happened. Madison had been their sniper. The one they called Whisper. And now, someone knew Whisper still lived. When Harper received an anonymous message, "Whisper lives." They all know. Everything changed. Old enemies were closing in. Maddox wasn't just trying to discredit Madison anymore. He wanted her silenced for good. That's when Madison reached out to her old spotter Noah Keller, the only man she still trusted. They met in an off-grid cabin deep in the woods. Together with Harper, they made a plan not to fight with bullets, but with truth. They'd leak the story. All of it. Black Echo. The missions. The betrayal. But disguised as fiction. A novel Harper would publish under a false name. A thriller that read like conspiracy but rang too true for insiders to ignore. They called it Whisper in the Wind. And it exploded. Veterans came forward. Forums lit up. The media circled like sharks. Maddox panicked. He launched a smear campaign, calling Madison a fraud. Fake sniper. Stolen valor. But the more he denied it, the more the truth took root. So Maddox made a bold move, publicly challenging Madison to a live duel. Man versus machine. Whisper versus his latest AI drone Orion 7. He called it the Veterans Honor Challenge. But Madison saw through the trap. It wasn't about honor. It was about execution on camera. So she flipped the script. With help from Noah and a reluctant ex-Redpoint security chief named Ben Travis, they planned a breach. During the staged duel, they would infiltrate Redpoint's Archivia bunker beneath the Expo Center and extract the files that proved everything. Black Echo's missions, Maddox's war crimes, the lies that had taken lives and buried soldiers. They walked in as press. Harper in the media pen. Noah disguised as maintenance. Madison in a stolen uniform. As Maddox ranted on stage, Noah slipped into the archive. Row by row, he found the tapes. Congo. The children. The false intel. Everything. Harper hacked the feed. As Maddox triggered the drone for his big finale, the giant screen behind him glitched. And then the truth played for the world to see. The footage hit like a bomb. Maddox exchanging weapons with warlords. Falsified reports. Black Echo fighting to protect civilians, not eliminate them. And Madison young, calm, deadly, rescuing children from a burning compound. The crowd turned. Maddox ran. And Madison followed. In the final corridor, it was just them. He called in the drone Orion 7. But Madison didn't flinch. She activated a voice-locked override built deep into its systemon he never found. The drone stood down, and Madison Lane whispered to him down. On camera, in front of the world. As FBI agents arrived and hauled him away, she handed over the proof. Not just of his crimes, but of the soldiers they'd tried to erase. And when the headlines came, when the hearings started, when the world finally learned about Black Echo, they couldn't bury it again. Whisper didn't just return. She rewrote the ending.